A Hermès Birkin bag on display in a Sydney boutique this week is priced at around $180,000. The small specification card beside it mentions the leather is porosus, saltwater crocodile. It does not mention which farm. It does not mention how much of that price ever returns to the Northern Territory where the animal was hatched. There are more than a dozen commercial saltwater crocodile farms operating in Australia, producing somewhere around 60,000 skins a year. Who actually owns those farms? The answer is documented. It is not what most Australians assume. And once you see it, that boutique window will not read the same way again. Here is what we found. Hold on to this one fact. The thing an Australian crocodile farm actually sells for a living is not the animal, and not even really the skin. It is a very specific measurement. If what's about to be laid out changes how that boutique window reads, it was designed to be invisible for a reason. Stay with it. The first thing to understand about a commercial crocodile farm is that it is not really a farm in the agricultural sense. It is a precision materials operation. Australian saltwater crocodile farms operate under strict regulatory frameworks that allow either captive breeding or wild egg collection under permit from state and territory governments. Northern Territory permits alone authorize the harvest of tens of thousands of wild-laid eggs annually, taken from breeding nests along the Adelaide, Mary, and Alligator River systems. Most Australians picture a crocodile farm as either a tourism attraction with a viewing platform or a rugged bush operation harvesting for meat. Neither of those pictures is right. The commercial saltwater crocodile industry is one of the most precision-oriented protein operations on the continent. Every animal is raised inside a temperature-controlled pen. Every animal receives calibrated feed. Every animal is monitored for stress, bite marks, and skin defects, because bite marks and stress ruin the finished product before it ever leaves the farm gate. The animals live inside individual or small group enclosures, precisely because a scratched belly skin is worth a fraction of a smooth one. They are typically harvested at around 3 years old, the age at which the belly skin has reached optimal size and pliability, before the animal grows large enough to develop the calluses that downgrade a skin. This has a name, though you will not find it on any tourism brochure. We call it the belly yield. The productive economic unit of a saltwater crocodile farm is not the animal, not the meat, not the total hide. It is the specific unblemished belly area, the flat central strip of the abdomen, measured in centimeters of continuous unmarked scale pattern. Once you know what to look for, you will find it named in every quality grading manual used by luxury tanneries, in every farm-to-tannery supply contract, and in every insurance schedule attached to a Birkin or Kelly bag in transit. So if the real product is a strip of belly skin measured in centimeters, what actually determines whether the farm makes money in a given year? 3 numbers: skin grade, kill weight, and who buys the finished skin at the other end. Grade classification is where the money moves. An A-grade porosus belly skin, perfect scale symmetry, no bite marks, no branding scars, can fetch upward of $2,000 a skin at farm gate. A B or C grade skin from the exact same animal, with a single visible defect, can drop below $800. Same crocodile, same 3 years of feed, same farm labor. 3 completely different economic outcomes at harvest. The price gap between an A-grade and a C-grade saltwater crocodile skin in Australia can exceed 200%, not because of anything the animal did, but because of a single bite mark on its belly that a rival animal made when they were both 18 months old. Same crocodile, same feed. 3 completely different businesses. This is why premium operations invest so heavily in individual enclosures, calibrated feeding, and continuous monitoring. The margin lives entirely in the yield of A-grade skin per animal raised, which brings us to the tannery, because a raw saltwater skin at farm gate is not yet a Birkin. It is a salted, folded piece of preserved hide that has to travel to a specialist tannery capable of processing porous crocodile leather. And whoever owns the tannery is standing at the choke point where a $2,000 raw skin becomes a $5,000 finished leather panel. The commercial saltwater crocodile industry in Australia has undergone one of the most quietly consequential ownership shifts of any Australian primary production sector in the last 15 years, and almost no mainstream media has covered it. In 2011, LVMH, the French luxury conglomerate that owns Louis Vuitton, Dior, Fendi, and dozens of other maisons, acquired a stake in Heng Long International, one of the largest specialist crocodile leather tanneries in the world, based in Singapore. In the years that followed, Hermès, the fiercely independent French maison, whose Birkin and Kelly bags are among the most expensive luxury goods on the planet, moved to secure its own supply chain, acquiring significant ownership stakes in saltwater crocodile farming operations in the Northern Territory, alongside a network of other supply arrangements across Northern Australia and Southeast Asia. By the middle of the last decade, both LVMH and Hermès had effectively vertically integrated significant portions of the Australian crocodile skin supply chain into their own corporate structures. This is the piece of the story that industry insiders discuss openly and outside observers almost never see. This has a name. We call it the vertical skin chain, the seamless corporate ownership of every handoff between an egg collected from a wild nest in the Adelaide River floodplain and a finished handbag sold in a boutique on Rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré. Once you know what to look for, you will find it in the shareholder registers of Northern Territory farm operating entities, in the tannery ownership records of Heng Long International, and in the audited annual reports of the parent luxury houses, whose supply chain security notes now casually reference captive Australian sources without ever naming the farms. That is when you realize the transaction was never about buying leather. It was about buying the ability to guarantee that a specific Birkin, ordered 18 months in advance by a specific client in Paris, will exist. Recall that figure from the opening: 60,000 skins a year produced in Australia. Now picture how much of that production is no longer sold on an open market at all. Roughly 2 French luxury conglomerates now control the majority of the supply chain that turns Australian saltwater crocodile skins into finished luxury handbags. Reshaping who profits from an Australian wildlife-derived industry wouldn't require touching a single retail shelf. It would only require an acquisition, a tannery, and a decade of patience. There's a term that has started circulating among agricultural trade analysts for exactly this kind of pattern: sovereign luxury drift, the slow acquisition-by-acquisition transfer of an Australian wildlife-derived value chain into overseas luxury conglomerates, without any single transaction ever looking large enough to formally block on foreign investment grounds. A single farm changing hands is either a normal commercial transaction or a small shift in national primary production sovereignty. And from the outside, the paperwork itself cannot tell the difference. This mechanism does not operate alone. There is a second system, quieter, older, and even more consequential, that decides which Australian wildlife products are permitted to be exported for commercial luxury use, and under what international treaty conditions. The next investigation maps that system completely, because owning the farm and being allowed to export the finished skin are not the same thing. And the day those two rights diverge is the day the whole industry gets recalculated. Here is the arithmetic, and this is where the numbers stop being industry statistics and become a personal ledger. A single A-grade saltwater crocodile skin leaves an Australian farm gate at somewhere between 1,500 and 2,500 Australian dollars. That same skin, after processing at a specialist tannery, becomes a finished leather panel valued at around $4,000 to $6,000. That finished panel then becomes part of a Hermès Birkin or Kelly bag with a retail price in the range of $150,000 to over $500,000 Australian dollars, depending on color, hardware, and rarity. Do the math on the multiplier. Farm gate to retail, roughly 90 to 120 times. If you have ever purchased a luxury exotic leather item at retail in Australia, a Birkin, a Kelly, a matching wallet, of every $1,000 you paid at the till, roughly $20 to $30 corresponds to the Australian farm gate value of the raw skin. The remaining $970 is captured by the tannery, the atelier, the brand markup, and the boutique, the vast majority of which flows through corporate structures headquartered in Paris. That is not a hypothetical margin. That is the specific split that a French luxury house designed and built when it bought the tannery and then bought the farm. Between 2011 and 2015, two French luxury conglomerates quietly acquired majority influence over Australia's largest commercial saltwater crocodile supply chain. Every $180,000 bag those farms now supply retains roughly $40 of Northern Territory economic value. The rest flows to Paris. That door has been open for a decade. So who is watching the whole system? A wildlife-derived industry on traditional owner country, feeding a foreign luxury supply chain? The honest answer is no single body, completely. The Northern Territory Department of Environment, Parks, and Water Security regulates farm licensing and egg harvest permits. The federal government administers international export permits under wildlife trade treaty obligations. Traditional owner groups negotiate royalty arrangements on a farm-by-farm basis. The Foreign Investment Review Board approves foreign acquisitions above certain thresholds. No unified national visibility exists over the combined ownership, animal welfare, egg harvest impact, traditional owner benefit share, and foreign extraction multiplier of the entire industry at once. It has continued running less because it was systematically defended, and more because, until recently, almost nobody outside the luxury industry itself had a strong enough reason to look at it as a strategic asset. That reason now clearly exists in multiple regions at the same time. So, what actually keeps a crocodile farm profitable across decades? Not consistent skin prices, not steady global demand, not favorable regulatory environments, which have shifted repeatedly over the last 20 years. What keeps them profitable on most ordinary decades is exclusive access to a supply chain that a luxury brand has already agreed to buy, and the vertical structure that guarantees the finished retail multiplier does not have to be shared with anyone outside the corporate parent. That is not really a farming business. That is a luxury supply chain business with animals attached. And luxury supply chain businesses do not fail the way agricultural businesses do. They compound margin at every handoff, and the party that owns every handoff keeps the compound. The deeper pattern here is not really about crocodiles. It is about how much of Australian primary production, from cattle stations to timber to fisheries to wildlife-derived leather, quietly depends on the assumption that finished goods value would eventually be shared with the country of origin. That assumption held while nobody thought to buy the vertical chain. Once someone thought to buy the vertical chain, the multiplier stopped touching Australia at all. Subscribe so the next investigation lands before the current Northern Territory review of crocodile farm licensing frameworks concludes in 2027, because by the time it is visible to everyone, the vertical chain will already have absorbed the next round of consolidation. The crocodiles were never really the product. The product was always the compounding of margin at each ownership handoff, and the quiet assumption that nobody would ever come counting how many handoffs had already left the country. Nobody was formally assigned to count them. Every year, the industry simply continued, on the hope that nobody would care enough to add it all up. Somewhere on a farm outside Darwin tonight, a 2-year-old saltwater crocodile is being measured belly first against a specification sheet written in French, on a lease held by an Australian subsidiary of a Paris-based house, carrying the quiet, unspoken understanding that the finished object it will eventually become will never be seen by anyone in this country outside of a boutique display window. The next time you walk past that boutique, look at the specification card. It will not tell you which floodplain. That silence is the story.